Euphoria is a coming-of-age story that follows the life of our main protagonist, Rue Bennett, but her actual name is Ruby, but nobody really calls her Ruby except somebody we're gonna meet in the second season, but let's not jump the gun, we'll get there. All the events that take place throughout this series happen in a small town called East Highland. Rue is basically a drug addict, and she's still a teenager. Well, that is the case in the first season of this show. In the first episode, we're introduced to a new girl called Jules. Jules is pretty shy, and she's also the love interest of Rue. In this first episode, there's an entire party, and we're introduced to a guy called Nate and a girl called Maddie. Now, these two are always in an on and off again relationship. Nate is a jock, he's a pretty toxic guy, and Maddie is just a baddie. But because, like I said earlier, they're toxic, Maddie hooks up with this guy at the pool, but she's kinda intoxicated, they have sex, and that's an entire thing. Also at this party, Jules shows up. She's trying to make some new friends, but since Nate is an asshole, he decides to press her, but Jules retaliates and she shows him that she's not the one to be fucked with, so she decides to slit her wrist. Yeah, Jules has a bunch of problems, but we'll get into that later. So does Nate, but it's coming. Relax. In the second episode of this series, we finally see Nate's backstory. Nate discovers his dad's collection at a very young age, like I'm talking really young. He's at his dad's office and he has to do this entire code just to access everything, and he's just sitting there staring at the screen watching his dad rail other people in motel rooms. From the age of 12, Nate develops this very rigid training regimen, and he's obsessed with power and getting stronger. It probably has something to do with the fact that he saw those videos of his dad just whipping his dick around and slapping it on people's foreheads in the hotel rooms. We then get some backstory from our protagonist, Rue. She's telling the audience that once her younger sister, Gia, found her OD. And I like how Gia is just standing there not doing anything. She's just making this face, whimpering like, my sister is gonna die. Later, we're at the East Highland High School and we see a new character being introduced. His name is Ethan. Ethan likes one of Rue's friends named Kat. In the previous episode in the series premiere, Kat loses her V card at the party that took place. It was a whole ordeal, but actions have consequences, which we're about to find out. Anyways, Nate is still mad that him and Maddie are on a break, so he's busy being a toxic boyfriend and he's stalking her. We then catch up with our protagonist Rue. She's trying to meet her quota for her drug rehab, but she's not actually sober and she's not actually following the procedure of what she's supposed to be doing. She's just lying. Back at school, Kat is finally realizing that she shouldn't have done what she did at the party because someone at that party who she slept with is busy circulating a video on campus of her giving head, and now she's insecure because people are seeing her topless and she's a little bit overweight. So there's a whole bunch of things that are getting to her head. Also, who would want their tape circulating at school? Like, people will just call you a slut, right? We then cut to another one of Rue's friends. Her name is Cassie. Cassie is probably one of the prettiest girls in town. She has a lot of issues, but we'll get into that later. Her mom is busy telling her boyfriend to treat her properly and to be a gentleman. You know, the typical helicopter mom stuff whenever you bring your significant other home. Nate is being Nate. He's still trying to win back Maddie, but she's not interested. Okay, she is, but she just doesn't want Nate to come back so easily. She wants to teach him a lesson, even though I'm pretty sure this is like the 5th time they've broken up, and this is only the second episode. We then catch up with the new girl in town, Jules. She's talking to a stranger online. Yeah, I'm sure that's a good idea, and it's not gonna have any consequences down the line. As this is happening, Rue is busy trying to get her drugs, her substances from two guys in town who are basically the equivalent of El Chapo and Pablo Escobar. I don't know who is who, but that's what they do. They sell drugs to high schoolers because one of them is a high school dropout and his adoptive brother helps the family business. Remember how I said in that first episode, Maddie hooked up with some guy at the pool party, but she was intoxicated? So yeah, Nate's been stalking this dude. He finally finds him and he beats the shit out of him. His name is Tyler, by the way. Nate is busy punching him. He's like, yo, did you touch my shorty, bro? And this dude is just whimpering because Nate is in high school and he's already 6 foot something and he's a menace of a dude and he's just there fisting this guy, kicking him and ripping him a new one. And to make things worse, after he's done beating him up, he wears his clothes. We then come to learn that the guy who Jules has been talking to online is actually Nate. Yeah, so Nate has a thing for the new girl, even though in that first episode he was pressing her at the party, trying to show his bravado and assert his dominance, but the entire time he likes her. I guess it's a typical high school situation. Actually, no, this is what people do in middle school. You know, if you're a guy, it's common to maybe tug a girl's hair because you're trying to get her attention, so you kind of end up bullying her. That's exactly what Nate is doing, I think. At the end of this second episode, him and Maddie reconcile and they're lovers again. I don't know how long they're gonna be lovebirds for, but hey, at least they're back together, right? Episode 3 kicks off with some backstory about Kat. So when Kat was a little girl, she went to Jamaica for a family trip. But unfortunately for her, she gained some pounds and she came back fat. She was dating a dude at this time called Daniel. Daniel didn't like her because now she was chubbier than when he first fell in love with her. So he decides to break up with her. We end up learning from Rue, who also happens to be the narrator throughout the show, that Kat is famous online. She's got a lot of clout. She writes these fanfics about things that I don't think I can say on YouTube. Let's just say it's gay, but it's super explicit. But the thing with the online fame, nobody knows that it's Kat from this school at East Highland. In real life, she's a loser, but online, she's super popular. Now, back at the Bennett household, Rue is busy quarreling with her mom. Her mom's name is Leslie, by the way. Leslie's like, I need you to piss. I need you to piss to make sure that you're not back on substances again. And Rue is fighting her, saying, Mom, I'm clean. I don't do that stuff anymore. I've been to rehab, okay? But Leslie, being Leslie and being a concerned mom, she's like, no, I don't believe you. Take a piss. Take a drug test. Rue eventually beats the drug test. She cheats, but that's besides the point. Anyways, later on, Rue goes to her rehab session and the camera pans to this guy. At first you think, who's this black man? We come to learn that his name is Ali and he can kind of see through Rue's entire facade and he can tell that she's faking everything and he knows that she hasn't been clean, even though she's pretending to be. Now, Kat decides to liberate herself. She decides to be a grown woman, so she starts a cam business. It's kind of ironic how she was concerned that her video was circulating throughout school. Now she's like, let me take back that power and make bread off of it. So that's exactly what she does. I respect the hustle, even though she's a minor. That's a little bit concerning. I'm just gonna be honest. Anyways, that black man from before confronts Rue. He tries to give her some life advice, but Rue, being Rue, she doesn't really want to listen, but he's telling her, yo kid, if you don't change your ways, you are going to have a ripple effect on everybody you love. And Rue's just there like, As this is taking place, Kat is making money off of simps, especially this fat dude who's the perfect example of a basement dweller. Anyways, some time passes by and Maddie is having sex with Nate. He's enjoying it. Of course, I don't blame him. Maddie's a baddie, but she isn't really enjoying it at all. She keeps on staring at the phone that's on the dresser because before it kept on buzzing while they were driving. And now she decides to go through it. She thinks Nate is cheating, but it turns out something far worse is happening on that device. She opens it and she sees that Nathaniel has a bunch of dick pics in his gallery. Kat ends up coming back to school. Now she's walking through the corridors and hallways like a bad. She's got a whole new persona. She even changed her wardrobe. She's feeling confident and liberated. And everyone is just looking at her like, who the fuck is this? Our protagonist, Miss Bennett, goes to visit Jules. She makes a move, leans in for a kiss, but then things get awkward because Jules didn't know that Rue likes her like that. And now Rue's just feeling awkward. She ends up leaving and she goes to our El Chapo and Pablo Escobar. And she's like, yo, I'm gonna need some of that stuff. I'm gonna need me some pills. Cause I just embarrassed myself and I need y'all to hook me up. Cause I don't wanna feel anything right now. She ends up knocking at Fez's door. She's like, yo, bro, I need you. I'm gonna pay you. Just give me some of that stuff. I'm going through something right now. And Fez is on the other side and is like, nah, Rue, I ain't giving you nothing. And then she's so mean to Fez. She tells him that you're a loser. You're the one that got me addicted in the first place. And that pretty much wraps up episode 3. Now, episode 4 has to be one of my favorite episodes in this entire show. It's called Shook Ones. So it opens with the backstory on Jules. She used to as a kid, she used to participate in self-harm. As I mentioned earlier, Jules has a lot of problems, but so do all the teenagers in this series. While she's seeking help for her mental health problems, etc., she meets this fat dude who, let's just say that he's addicted to I'm not even kidding. Anyways, we fast forward to the present day and we see Jules getting laid by this older guy. She enjoys doing this because it makes her feel like a woman and also she feels like she's in control of her body, blah, 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 blah. Rue starts opening up to Ali. They're kinda now getting along. Anyways, later on, the gang all go to the local carnival and there's a lot of drama that takes place at the carnival. Ethan ends up going with Kat and Maddie and Nate are on bad terms again. What else is new? Honestly, I'm not surprised. I've lost track of how many times these guys have broken up and got back together. At the carnival, Jules ends up seeing Nate's dad and then he's like, yo, can you not tell my wife and my family that I fucked the shit out of you at the motel? Cause I got a reputation and an image to uphold. So if you could just do that for me, I'd really appreciate it. While all of this is happening, Rue is busy fighting her younger sister and her new posse of friends. They're not really friends. They're just a bunch of people doing degenerate things. And Rue now feels like Gia is becoming her. So she shouts at her and is like, yo, get the fuck away from these degenerates. Maddie Perez ends up confronting Nate about what she saw on his phone. You remember in the previous episode, she saw a bunch of pics in his gallery. Nate is busy breaking down, trying to justify what she saw on his phone. But now it's already too late because prior to this, he chokeslammed her and pushed her against the trailer. Nate has a lot of anger issues. Why would he choke Maddie? Just look at Maddie, bro. Imagine putting your hands on this bad bitch. They were fighting before this sometime during the middle of the carnival because Nate was angry that Maddie showed up dressed like a hooker, but Maddie already had a vendetta against Nate because of the pic photos, so she caused the whole scene and emasculated him in front of everybody at the carnival. So that's how they ended up in this situation. But still, that's not justifiable. Nate Jacobs has serious problems. At the end of the episode, Nate meets Jules and he reveals himself to be the guy who she's been texting online. I mean, that's what you get when you talk to strangers that you meet randomly on the internet, right? Then he does this weird thing where he tries to be sexual with her, but she retaliates, she pushes him and says, you're just a like your dad. Yeah, it's a whole thing. The next episode starts off with the backstory on Maddie. She used to participate in pageants as a kid and her mom used to want her to be a star. And her dad, he's been lazy and been employed and unemployed so many times I've even lost count. Then we get this entire monologue from Rue about how Maddie uses her body to get things from boys, especially Nate. There's even this entire scene where she's practicing doggy on her bed. This is hands down one of the best scenes this season. Don't judge me. Don't judge me. Just look at that arch, bro. It's perfect. Anyways, back to the protagonist. She gets matching tattoos with Jules and this tattoo is fucking ugly. I'm just gonna be honest, but I guess they're young and in love. They did it without really thinking. I guess that's what kids do. We then cut back to Maddie Perez. She's going to school and she's trying to hide the bruises by wearing long clothes or just clothes to conceal the bruise in general. But ironically, it's causing lots of attention And also she just seems off, her energy is off, and I don't blame her. She just got assaulted by a guy who she really loves. But luckily, Maddie gets some form of justice because Nate ends up getting arrested, and now everybody at school is like, whoa, Nathaniel, what did you do? Then for whatever reason we learn about Rue's history, and let's just say that it's one of the most traumatizing things in this entire season. And that's saying a lot. Kat is still pursuing her saga of trying to be a bad bitch. She's reinvented herself, so now she's giving her crush sloppy toppy in a car and she feels good about it. Good for you, Kat, even though you should be focused on other things. But anyways, Cal Jacobs, Nate's father, ends up going to a motel to continue his degeneracy. He tries to hook up with this gay prostitute, but he ends up just breaking down, crying that his son is a monster, his son is just like him, his son has a lot of issues. And I'm just thinking to myself, you paid this dude to have sex, but now you're busy using this as a therapy session. Why don't you actually go to therapy instead of living a double life, Cal? In episode 6, we learn more about Cassie's boyfriend, McKay. Ever since this dude was a kid, his dad kept on grilling into him a lot of toxic masculinity. It's kind of similar to how Nate's dad kept telling him since he was young that he's the best, you gotta be strong, you gotta be tough, you have to embody the qualities of a man. So McKay's black father was doing the exact same thing, telling him how he's gotta be the best football player, he shouldn't be soft, he shouldn't cry, he has to dominate. During this episode, there's a Halloween party, cause why not? Due to the fact that Nate chokeslammed his girlfriend, they've now been seeing each other in secret because them going out together in public would be a cause of concern for everybody in East Highland. They'll just be looking at them like, huh? What the fuck? I thought these two were like done forever. Kat ends up being rude to Ethan because she saw Ethan with another girl at the carnival who's pretty hot. So Kat is feeling insecure and she's thinking that Ethan doesn't like her, or he's probably cheating, or it's just another case of Kat feeling like the ugly duckling. She's probably having PTSD to that time when Daniel broke up with her. We then fast forward to another party. This is a college party that McKay is attending and he's trying to sleep with Cassie, but then some frat boys walk into the room while he's, trying to get down to business, and they pretty much emasculate him in front of his shorty. Imagine, this dude is fully erect and these group of guys just come in and humiliate him. I really felt bad for McKay. McKay has been going through it this entire episode. Anyways, he ends up going to the bathroom. He doesn't want to show Cassie that he feels embarrassed. And then he comes out of the bathroom and then he's like to Cassie, yo, let's fuck again. So now this dude is trying to be rough. He's trying to give his girlfriend that wood, but his wood isn't as hard as it should be, and it's just not a good time for anyone. But McKay feels like he has to dominate. And this moment is a full comeback to the very start of the episode where his dad is busy trying to tell him what it's like to be a man. But obviously, this is just some social commentary on toxic masculinity, but that's a story for another time. Later on, Cassie ends up going to another party, the one with Rue, Maddie, and everyone else, the whole gang. But things get awkward for Cassie when this dude who's cosplaying as Ted Bundy he doesn't try, he successfully fingers her and he wants to take it to the next level, but Cassie realizes she has a boyfriend, so she doesn't want to be a But Ted Bundy here, he doesn't care, he just wants to get his dick wet. Back to Nathaniel. Nate ends up going to Tyler's apartment and he tells him, yo, you better go to the police department and tell them that you're the one who did this to Maddie. Basically take the blame, or else I'm gonna tell everybody that you raped her at the pool party. So Tyler is now in a catch-22 situation. He's like, oh shit, I gotta do what this menacing man says, or else he's probably gonna beat me again. Either that or he's still gonna beat me up just because. At the end of the episode, Nate is acquitted of all charges pretty much, and he pulls up to the party with Maddie, and now everyone is cheering Nate on because he is a jock after all, so he basically now has his cool points back and his street cred back. That pretty much wraps up the 6th episode. Episode 7 is rightfully titled The Trials and Tribulations of Trying to Pee While Being Depressed. At first, I saw this title and I was like, what the fuck could this be about? Rue, our main character, is going through the trials and tribulations of trying to be a functioning human, even though she's depressed as fuck. And it's all because of Jules, but we'll get into that later. At the beginning of this episode, we learn more about Cassie Howard. All her life, especially ever since she was a kid, her dad wanted her to be an ice skater for whatever reason. And also we hear from our narrator Rue that Cassie's dad was extremely handsome, the type of handsome that would make Cassie's mom get jealous. Growing up, their family was tight, but that wasn't the story forever. Things drastically changed once he got into an accident. But I'll get there. Anyways, once Cassie started growing up and developing as a young woman, all the older dudes in her life started to be more and more creepy, as in when they would come to family gatherings, they would cop a feel and Cassie would just be there like, this is awkward. Eventually, her dad got into a car accident and when he was in the hospital, he got addicted to pills. Fast forward and this dude is fully addicted. He's basically a junkie at this point. He visits Cassie at night sometimes and he makes a point to tell his kid and not to tell her mom that he's been pulling up in the middle of the night. Anyways, fast forward to the present day and Rue is playing Sherlock. She's investigating why Jules is acting strange all of a sudden and she quickly comes to the realization that Nate is Tyler, the dude who she was talking to online. And she pieces together that he somehow is involved with the whole Natty police case being dropped and being blamed to Tyler. Rue realizes that, oh, Nate is devious like that. Cassie links up with her girls and she tells them that she cheated on her boyfriend, but it ended up being about Kat now being a bitch. No, like for real, they were sitting here at the table trying to discuss what happened at the carnival, blah, 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 blah. And then Maddie's just like to Kat, you've been an awful person, a bad friend, and this new persona, it's not the one. I miss my old friend, not this one who's a bitch. And then they go back and forth, this squabble and this squabble and this squabble, and there's so much bickering. I like how BB is just sitting there confused as always. Man, you gotta love BB. At the Jacobs household, Cal confronts Nate. He's trying to lecture him and give him some life lessons, but Nate, being Nate, he doesn't really want to hear it. It's implied heavily in this scene that Cal knows that Nate did something to intervene with that police case, and he knows that he's the one who actually did choke Maddie, even though when he asked him before, he said he didn't. But anyways, everyone in this family is messed up. You'll see in season 2. Miss Bennett finally decides to leave her room and she sees a guy sitting with Leslie at the table. This guy's name is Rick. He's Leslie's new boyfriend and Rue basically calls this guy a piece of shit to his face. So let's give Miss Bennett an applause for that. She's like, I don't like the fact you're sitting where my dad used to sit. And Leslie, you could do so much better than Rick. She ends up getting frustrated after dealing with Rick and seeing his dumb face, so she decides to go to Fez. But Fez is in the middle of a drug deal. He's expecting Mouse, a drug dealer, a supplier, whatever you want to call him, to pull through, so he doesn't want Rue to intervene, but this is the main character of the story, so of course she's going to cause problems. Anyways, Jules is saying that she's tired of everything that's been happening. She's stressed, she has anxiety, so she tells Rue that she's going to another town to link up with some old friends. While this is happening, Cassie tells her boyfriend McKay that he's about to be a father, and of course McKay can't have this because he's focused on his football career that doesn't look promising, but he still believes he has a chance. So he's like to Cassie, nah, we're not having kids anytime soon. And I was watching this the whole time, I'm like, you should have wore a condom, McKay. Pablo Escobar, aka Fez, confronts Nate at the corner store and tells him to lay off of Rue and her friends. He's like, bro, just leave them alone and focus on your academics or whatever you high schoolers do. But Nate has to assert his dominance and he doesn't want to look like a bitch. So he tells Fez, I'm not listening to you. You sell to teenagers and you're a high school dropout, I am better than you. He doesn't say that, but that's the vibe Nathaniel was giving off. Plus, that's probably something Nate would say anyways, right? Since Nate is a vindictive and spiteful guy, it's implied at the end of the episode that he's the one that calls the cops and tries to get Fez's crib raided, because we see Fez dumping drugs in the toilet, and this happens immediately after that entire confrontation between the two of them, so you can put 2 and 2 together. That pretty much wraps up episode 7. Season 1's finale is the opening Pandora's box. So here's the rundown. Rue Bennett is in the hospital because of a bladder infection from the previous episode. I guess that's what happens when you're too lazy to go to the toilet and let out a little bit of a leak. Jules comes back to visit and she's there talking to Rue in the hospital. She's like, oh, are you here because of me? So Jules is manipulative as hell because she knows that Rue has attachment issues, but Jules still decided to leave and she decided to hook up with somebody else, even though her and Rue are kind of officially unofficial, if you can call it that. You get what I mean. Anyways, fast forward and Leslie's enjoying some quality time with Jules' dad. This guy has a lot of decorum. He's way better than Rick. I don't like Rick. Rue doesn't like Rick. We all don't like Rick. Anyways, Maddie confronts Nate about the pictures and Nate is being defensive. He's trying to say, oh, you don't have enough context. There's a reason why that's in my gallery, but Maddie isn't buying it. After their squabble, she takes notice of a disc in his room and she leaves with it. But just before she leaves with the disc, Cal is busy standing there judging Maddie, telling her that her and Nate don't belong together. They're toxic for each other. He's basically trying to be a dad who doesn't like his son's girlfriend, but Cal shouldn't be the one to talk because he has a lot of skeletons in his closet. The group get back together and they're at a school party. For whatever reason, there are so many parties this season and I never see these people focusing on their studies, but I guess that's every show centered around teenagers at school. I'm used to it at this point, but it's still kind of weird. Don't you have midterms or something? Tensions are high between Kat and Maddie because if you remember from the previous episode, Maddie called out Kat for being a bitch. Eventually, Kat learns from her mistakes and she apologizes to her boy toy Ethan. She's like, oh no, I saw you with that girl at the carnival. I thought you didn't like me anymore. Kat has a lot of issues. She has PTSD from the time Daniel dumped her ass. We then cut to a moment in the past where Miss Howard is busy deleting her baby. I'm pretty sure McKay was like, no, we're not having this kid. You either listen to me or I'm breaking up with you. So Cassie, since she has male-centered issues, she listens to Christopher McKay and she deletes that baby. Nate and Rue press each other outside and Nate is trying to play psychological games with Rue. He's like, yeah, everybody in this building is gonna pretty much amount to nothing, but Jules has dreams that she actually might attain. But as for you, you're just a low-life junkie. And you can see the expressions on Rue's face. It got to her. It got to her real bad. We then cut to this moment in the past and we see Nate's rage in full effect. He's busy bashing his body against the floor after his dad tried to give him some fatherly advice. Nate is there whimpering, but he's also being aggressive at the exact same time. So this just highlights how scared Nate is of his father, and it just goes to show that bullies are actually cowards. Towards the end of the episode, Jules tries to convince Rue that they should run away together. I don't really like Jules's behavior. She left town because she was going through it. She was mad about the Tyler situation. And then she comes back. She left Rue and now she just wants Rue to stop whatever she has going on and just pack up, forget about Leslie, forget about Gia, and just move on to another town simply because Jules says so. Like, what the fuck, Jules? But ultimately, Rue is not an idiot, so she decides not to go. At the end, we have this montage of Rue. She's wearing her dad's sweater that she's been wearing pretty much throughout this entire first season. This sweater means a lot to her because her dad used to wear it all the time. Her dad is no longer alive, blah, 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 you get the gist. And everyone is busy dancing and having the time of their life. I like that song they do at the end. I can't sing, so brace yourselves, but it goes a little bit something like this. Get giving it all to you. And that pretty much wraps up the first season.
The Big Dipper.